Alright. We're ready to go for the next one. So what are we talking about this time?
We're talking about Transformers 1986, the animated movie.
Yes,
or
and...
however you say that.
Oh, Transformers, the movie. That's what usually most people would just refer to it as.
But is it the animated movie 1986, or is it 1986?
Oh, it is technically an animated movie, but it's just the official title is Transformers, the movie.
Yeah, okay. So the 1986 animated movie, in case there's been another one that I don't know about.
I don't know if there's been another animated film. There's been the 6th and upcoming 7th live action films, but other than that, yeah.
Wait, 7th in the main universe?
Well, 5 in the main universe. 1 in Bumblebee, whatever that's officially considered, whether it's a prequel or a reboot, because they weren't even 100% clear in that film. So initially when it started production, it started production as a prequel, but during production they changed their minds, and it was like,
scared?
Well, they were like, they saw the quality of the script and potential for this to kind of be like a fresh start to reboot the franchise.
Yeah.
So about halfway through production they decided to make that change. And instead of it actually being a prequel to the 5 previous films, it ended up becoming a film in itself, like its own thing, like a quasi reboot. So that's when you watch it, it kind of seems like a prequel, but at the same time, it kind of seems like a reboot because it kind of is both. It's whatever works and whatever we can make money off of.
So is the next one they're doing? Is it going to be? Like
so
Transformers is going to be.
Well, I was going to say that's the reason why Optimus appears in the film again at the end. That was one of the changes they made when no, this is a reboot.
Yeah.
Because Optimus wasn't originally going to appear in the film, at the end. He was just going to have that little brief part at the beginning.
Yeah.
On the Cybertron fight, and then during that message piece in the middle of the film, and then at the end of the film, it would have been him. At the end it wouldn't have had Optimus appear at all.
Okay.
But they decided to, no, you know what, forget it. It will be Optimus, and we will have him appear. And yes, this is a reboot, not a prequel. But the next film is technically officially considered a sequel to Bumblebee. Whether or not they're still going to try to keep it in that quasi-prequel-esque realm, or if they will just go, full bananas and be like, no, this is 100% a reboot. We will find out with the next film.
But is it Bumblebee 2, or is it...
No, it's called Transformers Rise of the Beasts.
Oh, okay. Wait, Beasts. Okay.
Yeah, they will have Maximals and Predacons.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mixed with Autobots and Decepticons. The only Maximals they've confirmed are Optimus Primal, Rhinox, and
Gotcha.
no, and not Cheetor either. It's Air-Razor.
Oh, Air-Razor, of course. Flying one, yeah.
So those are the 3 Maximals they've confirmed. And then they confirmed a few Autobots. I know I'm forgetting some. Obviously Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. But Mirage.
So I take it time travel is involved in this one?
Huh? What?
Because the Maximals don't exist.
Yeah, I don't know how they're working them in. Sorry, and the Autobots are Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Mirage, who looks exactly like Jazz.
Of course.
He's like legitimately cartoon toy accurate to Jazz. At least his vehicle mode is.
Okay.
So everybody they saw it, it was like, "Whoa, Jazz?" And like, no, it says Mirage.
Yeah.
Unless they're trying to be coy and later reveal, no, Mirage is just a red herring. It really is Jazz.
Fair.
And who's some of the other? RC will be back in this one.
Was she in the last one?
She was in the second one. What was it called? Revenge of the Fallen. She was technically the 3 motorbikes.
Oh.
Yeah.
But she's back. But is she back?
But, either this is a prequel or a full-on reboot, so technically that takes place prior to those events, one way or another, so whatever. Yeah.
Fair. Okay, back to, I guess, the point we were talking
Yeah, the actual movie we're here to talk about.
Spoiler alert.
For a 35-year-old movie.
Yes. If you haven't seen it, just go see it. Just go watch it. It's good. It's really good.
It's ironically enough probably one of the stronger Transformers movies they've done. And it's the sad thing is because it's
the best Transformers movie they've done. I don't think there's a single Transformers movie that.
And that's what I laugh at, because the irony is this is like a film from the mid '80s that was aimed for children.
Yep.
And they still did a better job than any of the live action movies.
Yep.
Well, no. With the exception of Bumblebee. Bumblebee was a good film.
I mean, I guess from my point of view for Bumblebee, I enjoyed it. But I enjoyed it like I enjoyed some of the other live action ones, where it wasn't as good for me because
that's fair.
All the bad ones I watched.
I was able to divorce myself from that. I was able to judge it on its own, and like I can admit, like Bumblebee is the only good live action film they've done. The previous 5 Michael Bay ones sucked.
I could say Bumblebee is probably better than the other Transformers ones, but like it wasn't like I don't want to call it good. If that's just where
I would say it's good.
That's fair,
yeah. And I would say it was more. It was
better
more
than the rest.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I can.
But I would say it was also more than just like a Transformers movie. I feel Bumblebee more or less was a love letter to the '80s.
Yeah.
It was basically also a love letter to Steven Spielberg. Basically, if you watch any Steven Spielberg movie from the 1980s, and then you lump Bumblebee in there, it kind of feels like it's a part of that.
Oh, okay. That's a good point of view. I didn't actually think of that.
Yeah. So, that's what I mean. Like, I was able to divorce myself from the other films and just judge on its own. I'm like, oh, this is a decent film, and it's a nice throwback to the 80s, and it's a nice love letter to Steven Spielberg. And, like, I was able to appreciate it for all that. And, yeah, it was pretty good. But once again, getting back to the actual movie we're supposed to be talking about, and not the garbage live-action films.
I think we're constantly going to keep going back to them
throughout.
I think we're just going to have to get used to it at this point.
All right,
so I like the animated movie. It's one of my favorites. I used to watch it 3 to 4 times a day when I was young, like teenager, younger than that. I mean, it came out before I was even born, but
it did by 3 years.
Which just goes to show how well it holds up after all these years. Like, we just watched it today, and as soon as you put it on, I'm like, yeah, we're gonna watch this movie. That's awesome. And I didn't even know if we were gonna do a review or not. I was just like, we're just watching a Transformers movie. This is cool. And then halfway through, you're like, yeah, we'll do a review. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, I could have done a review on this movie without actually having to sit down and watch it because I love it.
And we watched it in 4K today because it's out in 4K Blu-ray.
Favorite part?
On the entire film?
Yeah.
I have so many. When Optimus, when Hot Rod officially becomes Rodimus Prime, and you hear the Optimus voiceover, and it says "Arise, Rodimus Prime," and it's like the official passing of the torch at that point. And then Hot Rod transforms into Rodimus Prime and is able to use the Matrix to light their darkest hour.
It's fitting you chose Autobots as your favorite scene, because generally you're always the Autobots you like better, and I always like the Decepticons or the Maximals, and then I like the Predacons. Generally, right? So my favorite scene.
I was gonna before you say your favorite scene.
Okay.
I'm gonna say my second favorite, almost equal to my first favorite scene, which might be your favorite scene, but you can let me know in a second.
Okay, yeah.
Is when Galvatron shows up to Starscream's coronation and kills him. Hey, what's it? Okay, yeah, all right.
Yes.
All right, so talk about your favorite scene.
So my favorite scene is, who disrupts my coronation? Coronation Starscream, that's just bad comedy. Yeah. Definitely favorite scene. Funny how that you knew exactly where I was going with that, but I just like the parallel that we've kind of had growing up, where you've always liked the good guys, I've always liked the bad guys generally in the Transformers universe. Part, yeah. I mean, obviously, there are good guys I like, and vice versa and stuff like that, but I generally root for the bad guys in the Transformers series. So like for you, the first one you mentioned being Autobots in the first one that I'm thinking about is Decepticons is just kind of like part of the course for us.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy that. Odd thing to ask, man. And anything you think they could improve? They could have done better.
Yeah, consistency in the animation. There wasn't so many errors.
Oh, you mean like the missing Dinobot / not missing Dinobot?
Yeah, like actually have them either be consistent throughout the whole film or not have them film at all, or how like Thundercracker and Skywarp show up technically after they're dead during Starscream's coronation.
Did they?
Yeah, they're in the crowd.
Yeah.
When they do the full shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're there. And the reason why that animation error exists is because this movie was being animated. They started animating this film based on the second last draft, not the fully finalized draft.
Okay.
But they made a crap ton of changes for the final draft.
Oh, okay.
So the problem was they were already kind of, and they had to, because they couldn't really stop and start over again, they had to kind of work with what they've already animated and try to fit it in.
Yeah.
So that's why you get stuff like, Thundercracker and Skywarp showing up during the coronation,
yeah,
even though they're technically already dead and transformed into like Cyclonus and what's his name, Scourge. Yeah.
It's like we're not there anymore, but hi.
Because in the original film, so not the original film, in the second last draft, which is the one they started animating from before they made a lot of changes and then had to stop and start animating from the last draft and just basically hodgepodge everything together. In that version, the Megatron's troops came from a different place. So essentially, they didn't throw all the Decepticons out into space. What had happened was they went back to, I guess, Cybertron, and were putting the Decepticons in these crypts. So basically their life sparks could be housed in these crypts.
Okay.
And basically if they weren't, then the life spark would get away, and kind of thing, and just float away into nothingness. And what ended up happening was, I think they were having this conflict for leadership after they got back to Cybertron. And during the conflict, they weren't able to get Megatron into a shrine, and he died before his life spark could be put into the shrine to be held on Cybertron in the Cybertronian crypt.
Okay. So
his spark ended up flying off into space, and during the battle, a bunch of the other crypts were broken for ancient Decepticons.
Okay.
And their sparks flew off, and then that's when Unicron, came along, found their life sparks, and then gave them new bodies.
Oh. Okay.
And then sent them back as his minions.
Yeah.
So he wasn't recreating, taking their old bodies and transforming them into new bodies. He just found these sparks floating in space. He made a deal with them, gave them new bodies, and they're his minions.
That's an interesting version of the movie. I haven't actually heard that before.
Yeah, and that's why Skywarp and Thundercracker appear in that scene for Starscream's coronation.
Because they're still alive. Because
they were still alive in the original script. They didn't die. And they didn't become Cyclonus and Scourge. But during the rewrites, they did. So that's why you have some animation errors like that. There was also, too, during the original trailer, there is a scene showing RC with Cup and Hot Rod. Because in the original draft, RC was supposed to go with Cup and Hot Rod and the Dinobots.
Yeah. And
she was supposed to be with them.
Yeah.
So there's actually a little scene in the original trailer that shows that. And in the movie, that doesn't happen. She ends up on the other ship with the other guys.
Yeah.
Because that's something that also changed during the the rewrite, because what happened was she was supposed to have a slightly larger part, but they didn't think the main audience, young boys, would care to be interested in a female Autobot that much.
Okay.
So they reduced her screen time. So that's why she ended up on the other ship, and then they just focused on Cup and Hot Rod and the Dinobots, and then she was basically with the B story with the other guys. And they also, too, Hot Rod and RC were supposed to kind of have this quasi love story kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they also flipped that and gave that to Springer and RC, because they're that flirtatious kind of thing between them. That was originally, that flirtatious bit was supposed to be between her and Hot Rod, and during the rewrites they flipped it and gave it to her and Springer, because they felt, with Hot Rod becoming the new leader of the Autobots, you shouldn't have any romantic entanglements or anything.
Yeah, because he might make bad decisions, and that's fair. Again, for me, it would be animation. To just kind of keep track, make sure all 5 Dinobots are there when they're supposed to be there.
Yeah,
and just other things where, like, at one point, Hot Rod's talking to Cup, and he does this, like, animation where he puts his arms up in the air, and then he puts them down, but then for no reason whatsoever, he just decides to put them back up in the air again.
Yeah, this animation inconsistency. Yeah.
It didn't really need that, but that would be the only thing I can say. The soundtrack is amazing. I love every song on there. Dare to Believe.
Yeah, it had a very corny 80s soundtrack for sure. It is legitimately, when you hear it, like, this is a very 80s soundtrack.
I find myself listening to that quite often, and one of the favorite things a bunch of us used to do is when we used to play the Transformers game for PS3. We used to put that soundtrack on while we were playing multiplayer.
Oh yeah.
We used to, like, rock out playing Transformers while listening to the soundtrack from the movie. Out of the characters that are in it, who's your favorite character?
I'll answer that in a second after I say this bit, before I forget it. And I was to say, and another thing too that changed.
Okay.
From the original trailer was Ultra Magnus's color scheme.
Yeah.
They flipped his red and blue. If you watch the original trailer, you get to see him in his original color scheme. Where he was blue, he was red, and where he was red, he was blue.
Oh,
they flipped it.
Okay.
And the reason why they ended up flipping it, making him more blue than red instead of red than blue, is they wanted him to stand out more from Optimus Prime.
Yeah, not just be a...
And not basically just be the Optimus Prime replacement.
Yeah.
Because basically his toy, and if you really look at the animation model, is basically just Optimus Prime in a power suit.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, they're like, okay, well, how can we make this even more different? Well, let's flip the red and blue and make him more blue than red, because in the original trailer he was mostly red with a little blue.
So does that mean in, like, the, I guess, live action second one, when Optimus got his power suit on, he was actually Ultra Magnus?
I want to say no, because Ultra Magnus deserves better.
So Ultra Magnus was in those movies. So yeah, favorite character in the movie.
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say it's for me, it's a two-way tie between Rodimus Primal and Ultra Magnus.
Fair, okay, I get that. For myself, it's like, I mean, I love Unicron. Just like, he's just...
Unicron's fun, but he's not my favorite character. I would say my close second is Galvatron. It's like my number one is tied between Rodimus Prime and Ultra Magnus, and my close number 2 is Galvatron.
Yeah, again, I wasn't saying he was my favorite. I was like, I like him, I like Galvatron, but, like, personally, I can't say I really have a favorite. Like,
yeah.
I like so many of them roughly the same.
And I'm going to say a lot of my favorite characters in this film are the Autobots, and that's mainly because they have more screen time and more development.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing with this film, is the characters actually get character development. Unlike in the Michael Bay films, where they're just usually a bunch of silver, gray, and black metal robots fighting, and you can't really distinguish who's who most of the time. And
is that an Autobot or is that Decepticon?
yeah, exactly, or what they're doing, or basically everybody's got the same personality. They're either like, like a quirky jerk, or they're stoic, or they have absolutely no personality.
Yeah.
And some of them don't even have dialogue. So it's like
beep boop boop.
So yeah, that's the major difference. That's why this one stands out so much. Is because the robot characters actually have character development. They're actually characters in the movie, and their characters actually help drive the plot and move it forward, unlike in any of the live action ones.
Now, Alita wasn't, I believe is her name, Optimus's love interest from like other things. Was she ever actually in the original series?
Yeah, she was. Alita 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. She was his girlfriend.
Was she in...
She was his girlfriend when he was Orion Pax.
Oh, okay.
In the original
So this
series.
is before anything even.
So yeah, before he became... Because when he got the Matrix of Leadership, he became Optimus Prime.
Yeah.
Just like when Hot Rod got the Matrix of Leadership, he became Rodimus Prime.
Yeah.
Optimus was Orion
Orion
Pax, and when he got the Matrix, he became Optimus Prime.
But what happened to Alita?
There's a story about Alita. Basically, she gets injured. I think it was... Who's it? Oh, I forget the Autobot. It's basically... his mentor, Optimus Prime's mentor.
Oh,
No, not Zeta
I
Prime.
was gonna say Zeta Prime.
Not Zeta Prime. Alpha Trion.
Alpha Trion.
It's Alpha Trion, and if you actually watch the episode, I don't think they actually mention anything about the Matrix of Leadership. It's just that Orion Pax got injured, and Alpha Trion, like, rebuilt him into Optimus Prime, because they hadn't actually introduced the Matrix of Leadership yet into the movie.
Okay.
So they kind of retconned it, that when he rebuilt him, he gave him the Matrix of Leadership, and that's essentially what transformed him into Optimus Prime.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit of a retcon there they did later.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the Matrix of Leadership becomes this big important thing for season 3, and I don't believe it appears or is mentioned once at all during seasons 1 and 2.
So she was injured as well?
Yeah, she was injured, and then a lot of people thought she was initially rebuilt and became RC, but she wasn't. She ends up becoming, and I don't even know if her name is actually Alita 1 in the cartoon.
No?
It might be Alita, or it might be something else. And then, but wherever she gets rebuilt into, she's Alita 1. So,
Okay.
yeah. And then he also had a buddy, whose name I can't remember.
Ironhead?
No, Optimus. That also got injured in that episode and was rebuilt. And he kind of had the same color scheme as Ultra Magnus.
Oh, yeah?
And kind of looked similar to Orion Pax.
Okay.
Basically, it looked like if I remember correctly, they just used the same character model, just tweaked it a bit and changed his color scheme, and it's like, oh, this is Orion. And gave him, I think they both had different heads, though. Like, this is Orion Pax, and this is his buddy, whatever. And for the longest time, they kind of alluded to his buddy was rebuilt into Ultra Magnus.
Okay.
So yeah, but they never officially confirmed that. They kind of just like gloss over it.
And leave
That was a kind of like alluded to a little bit, and they kind of just let that up to the audience to decide. And in G1, I don't think they've officially established any official continuity stating Ultra Magnus's past at all.
Right.
So you could go any way you want with that, but a lot of the comics and expanded universe have many different incarnations of who and what Ultra Magnus is. Some go with he was Optimus's buddy that was then rebuilt into Ultra Magnus, and then another story had it be Optimus, his buddy, and another Autobot were kind of amalgamated into one and rebuilt into a new robot, which was Ultra Magnus. Then there's also stories that have Ultra Magnus be completely separate and divorced from all that, and not be connected to any of that, and just be his own robot. And then there's another version too, where the whole Ultra Magnus suit is just a giant power suit,
Did Optimus first?
No, it's not Optimus.
Oh.
There is this like very small Autobot inside. And
Okay.
he just wears this giant power suit.
Okay.
And then so that there's that one. And then there's another one that kind of there's another origin that kind of tips the hat to the initial toy, where the Ultra Magnus we know is legitimately a power suit, and underneath that power suit he's just a white Optimus Prime.
But he's actually Optimus.
I mean, he's not Optimus. He's
Oh.
basically just a duplicate of Optimus. Like
Okay.
they look identical except he's white. He's just a
Okay.
purely white version of Optimus Prime, and the Ultra Magnus we know is just this power suit he wears over himself. So there's that, and then there's the other one where there's this little green robot who is like smaller than Bumblebee,
Well, yeah.
who operates this giant like mech power suit that's Ultra Magnus.
Yeah.
And as I said, there's also ones where Ultra Magnus is just his own guy, not connected to anything. There's also the ones where it's Optimus' old body who is rebuilt in the Ultra Magnus, and then the other story is Optimus' old body and another robot were combined and recreated into Ultra Magnus.
Now, is there any version where it is just Optimus?
As far as I know, no.
Okay. Other than the Transformers second movie.
What? Oh, you mean at the end, yeah, when he gets Jetfire's power pack and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're alluding to it.
Where
we talked
he
about earlier,
combines,
it's like,
where he
is
combines
it
with
Ultra Magnus?
Jetfire, and he becomes like, Super Optimus Prime. It's like, oh, you have a jetpack now, and additional weapons.
That was fun, and I forget which game it was that I played it in.
Oh yeah, in the game, yeah,
That was
playing
fun,
it,
playing
sure,
it,
but in the movie it was awful.
Oh, yes, it was. Trying to think of any other questions I can think of. Do you think they'd continue the original universe at any point? I guess Beast
everyone
Wars
would
did.
love them to do that. There have been a lot of like storylines and animated shows that they say it is a continuation of G1, but they really aren't.
Mhm.
Or like they're in the spirit of G1, but they're not an actual continuation. Everyone would love it if they just did like another animated movie that was 100% like a continuation of G1, picking up where season 3 left
They
off.
should. I feel like that's a market they're missing out on. Like,
In Japan, they did technically continue it, so there is like seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7.
okay.
But it's considered a separate continuity. It's considered like Japanese G1, which isn't North American G1.
Okay, yeah.
And also the Japanese series also ignores the final 3 episodes of season 3.
Yeah.
That is technically sometimes considered season 4,
Okay, yeah.
even though it's just 3 episodes. And they ignore those 3 episodes and pretend they don't exist and just continue on.
You know what's funny? I never actually sat down and watched every episode of that. I've seen every episode of Beast Wars.
You can watch it on Tubi.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, for free. You just have to put up with commercials.
I am used to commercials.
Yeah.
Okay, I might actually sit down and do that. Thanks for letting me know.
No problem.
And thanks for letting everyone else know. But I guess maybe it's about time to wrap it up there, brother?
Yeah, I'd recommend giving this one a shot.
Absolutely, watch
This is
it.
definitely better than the live action films.
And once you're done watching it, hit play again and watch it again.
Over and over and over. Yeah. Alright, so I guess this is where we do our outros. I'll
Yeah.
let you take the lead again.
So let me take over you take over your channel. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe, and comment in the comments. Who's your favorite Transformer? Whether they've appeared in
Yeah, any medium. Just let us know
any
in the
medium.
comments.
Any medium. Just your favorite one. I would like to know. I definitely would.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
And on that note, adios, guys. Have a good one.
Adios.